My name is Jennifer Down and I am a writer. So I've published 3 books. The first, Our Magic Hour, was a novel released in 2016, followed by a short story collection called Pulse Points, and soon to be released, another novel, a very big novel called Bodies of Light. I think what drew me to being a writer was, it's kind of like acting, which I never wanted to do, but it enables you to inhabit the lives of others. It's kind of like trying on somebody else's skin. And I'm a reader as well. I think first and foremost I'm a reader. When I read somebody else's work, there's this sense of I want to know how they pulled it off, and I want to be able to do that. There's something really frustrating and also beautiful about a discipline like writing, where I don't think you ever reach the end point or become a master of it. You know, it's just this one long Sisyphean apprenticeship, which is oddly impressive and kind of alluring to me. Good writing has the potential to kind of ignite conversations and to instill a sense of understanding or empathy that perhaps wasn't previously there. I think all of my work has a preoccupation with this intersection of class and gender and geography, and perhaps how they can be used to shine a little bit of a light on stories or places that don't often see representation. So we are in Cairo. It's a block of flats that was built in 1936, I think, by an architect named Besen. It's where I live, and it occupies a kind of special place in Melbourne literary history as well, because it featured as the setting and the title for Chris Womersley's novel, Cairo. It was designed as a response to the needs of bachelors, and so I like the idea of living here as a gal by myself. I like working here in part because it feels comfortable, the natural light. It's very close to a lot of parks and gardens. There's a lot of green space in here, and there's also a really lovely sense of community among the residents. I do feel very self-conscious working in public, like whether it's a public library or at a cafe. I've never been particularly capable of working in public. My flat has these big tall windows that let in a lot of light, so I'm not far away from people. It's not like being in some lonely garret, but it's also private, and there's a great sense of sort of intimacy and privacy. When I was 23, I was still finishing up at uni. I submitted the novel that was Our Magic Hour to the Victorian Premier's Award for an unpublished manuscript, and it didn't win, but it was shortlisted. Fortunately, that was kind of enough. I guess the runs that I had on the board were relatively small, and to be honest, I don't know that I have either like the stamina or the fortitude to have done the traditional thing of shopping my manuscript around and submitting it. I guess I never wrote it with the intention of being published necessarily. So this was kind of an indirect way of dipping a toe in the water, you know, by sending it to an award. And I think if it hadn't gone anywhere, I just would have given up on that particular pursuit. Our Magic Hour was very much a coming of age novel, and I think when we think of coming of age novels, we think of teenagehood, but the older I get, the more I realise that there's not one single moment or even a year when you come of age. It's kind of this constant evolution. And I wanted to write something that was reflective of what it means to be in your early 20s, when you're kind of expected, you know, you have your own Medicare card and you might have a car and you're in a relationship of your own. It's not kind of first love, first kiss. There are certain things that you are supposed to have figured out, but you're still pantomiming adulthood because there are still all of these firsts at that age. It might be the breakup of the first great love, or it could be the first time you have to care for a parent or a partner in that adult capacity. There are so many things that seem staggeringly large at that age, and many of them are, but I was just interested in how events, and particularly a traumatic event, might play out at that age when you're still developing psychologically into, you know, the person you're going to become. So we are tucked behind the Southeastern Freeway in Richmond, in front of an art piece that sits on top of what I think is the Suzanne/Sports Girl factory in Richmond, the Our Magic Hour sign. I grew up in kind of the outer southeastern suburbs, and I'd often seen this sign driving home from wherever, uni, TAFE, and I kind of used to look out for it and kind of chart its presence. You know, it's usually lit up at night in this really beautiful rainbow, and then sometimes, you know, there would be no illumination, and sometimes there'd be one or two letters out, and it became this kind of ritualised thing that I would look for whenever I was driving home after a night TAFE class. And it eventually, I was going to say it found its way into my book, but it eventually became the title for my first book. It always seemed kind of fitting. It was like I guess this kind of touchstone for me personally, and it does make a couple of appearances in the book, mostly just, you know, a character refers to it here, somebody else observes it there. I like thinking about what tense it's in, you know, is right now present tense our magic hour, or, you know, is it a more nostalgic longing for the past? Place is essential for me, both as a reader and as a writer. It's almost cliche to talk about setting as a character in its own right, in a work of fiction, for instance, but I think it absolutely can and often should serve that function. As a reader, I want to know, you know, I want to feel grounded in a setting. I want to know where I am in the world, whether that's, you know, real or imagined. And as a writer, I want to communicate the world that I'm describing to the reader as effectively as possible. One of the hills that I will die on is railing against that mythologisation of the artist in general, but especially the writer. You know, writing is labour. There's a beautiful Helen Garner quote about it being, you know, sheer bloody labour and pushing your boulder up a hill just so you can plant your flag on top of it. And then you kind of have to do it all again. Writing is not some magical gift. I think it's the ability to want to do it, or the desire, or the whatever it is, the impetus to keep doing it. That to me is, if there's any magical part, that is it. I think I plan to a certain extent, and then a lot of it is improvisation, or I do kind of believe in your subconscious doing a lot of work by itself when you're otherwise occupied. That's why I'm a big believer in like movement and, you know, going for a bike ride or getting in the car or going for a run and just letting my brain tick over. We're in Abbotsford on the banks of the Yarra River. I come here a lot, usually running or walking. I've been a runner since I was in high school. I think my brain needs stimulation while I'm running, so I like looking at changing scenery and things. But in lockdown last year I started to walk more, I think mostly as a way of maximising my time outside. And I do a lot of thinking while I'm running, and a lot of creative thinking. I'm trying to be less inclined to put on a podcast or a playlist, and more inclined to spend that time letting my brain solve problems or run through scenarios. My work to date, I think probably what I'm most proud of is the novel that is soon to be published. It took me a really long time to write, and it kind of touches on these themes that I'm broadly interested in as a writer, as a person. You know, these ideas of geography and class and identity and memory. This was particularly challenging to write, both technically and also in terms of the subject matter. It was quite a bruising thing to work on, so having it, you know, it's not out in the world yet, but knowing that it will be, and that it might open up a conversation or it might bring feeling to someone else is, yeah, a particular source of pride, I think. I actually don't think about the future very much, at least not in terms of my career. And I said this to students recently, and it probably sounds very trite, but my motto as a writer has always been, expect nothing, appreciate everything. The Australian arts economy is so pressed, and it's so hard to predict where things will go, and our literary scene is beautiful, but it's relatively small as well. And so I think if I can keep doing what I'm doing now and writing and putting out books, that would be the best possible outcome. It's a place where I would like to spend more and more time, and so the more time I can spend doing that, the better.